All right, we are live. Is it recording? There's our timer.
I think so.
All right, well, we're just going to be patient and wait for some people to pop on before we start chatting.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well.
Merry Christmas.
Nice Christmas Eve. Nice Christmas.
Well,
There's the anticipation.
Yeah. It'll be Christmas. So we're on the East Coast. It's what time is it? 10:30 or something?
Well,
a little
but
later. It'll be Christmas in like 2 hours.
It doesn't count until you wake up. Presents.
By your big Christmas tree over there.
Well, I don't have them this year.
See, now we have some people popping in. So, Hi, everybody. We were waiting till we had a few people before we said anything. We're just, I've spent a lot of holidays alone, and we figured that this year is really different from a lot of years. There's a lot of people who are by themselves who aren't normally on Christmas, or even if you are normally, you can be by yourself and doom scroll through YouTube, or you can hang out with us. So we just figured we'd come on for a little while and chat and hang out.
What is doom scroll?
Doom scrolling is mostly like Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, where you're just like looking at one horrible negative thing after the other.
Right.
So no, we don't really doom scroll through YouTube, but no, I knew there would be some people that on Christmas Eve would be on YouTube because it's just a weird year. And maybe
my kids aren't here. Two of my kids.
Yeah.
They're up in New York City and they didn't make the trip down to North Carolina because of COVID.
But better safer. They wanted to come down. You said not to. You thought it would be safer for them not to, which is probably true. But yeah, for those of you who have been living under a rock, this is the famous Dr. Westman that I'm always mentioning on my videos. So assuming you've seen some of my other videos, this is Dr. Westman, in case you've never seen him before. My co-author on our book. So the light here is End Your Carb Confusion. This is our new book. So feel free to ask questions. We see the chat. If you want to, you have like a world leading expert in carbohydrate restriction here. So like, speak now or forever hold your peace. If you have a burning question that you would like to ask, he's the man. Hello, everybody from Massachusetts and from wherever Edward is from. Book arrived today. Thanks, Edward. Hey, Glee. Thanks, everyone, for being. I hope more people pop on. I knew people are going to be out there and they might like to watch us have meaningless banter. No, just kidding. Not meaningless banter. When I listen to podcasts and at the beginning, if there's like more than one host, they just have this endless chit chat before they get to the topic or before they get to the interview. And it's like, oh my God, just get to it. But as I'm saying that, I know that I do that exact thing on my videos. I'm always like, oh, well, let me tell you about the book and the Adapter Life Masterclass and all this stuff. And it's 5 minutes before I actually get to talking about my topic. So do
you know it's really tomorrow in Australia?
It is. It's Christmas in Australia. Merry Christmas, Pete.
So I worked partly today. I worked half a day. And then there's a waiting list to see me in the clinic at Duke University. And of course, the two new people didn't show up for their new patient appointments. So, but who wants to go see the obesity medicine weight loss keto doctor on Christmas Eve?
Well, but I think you can see the keto doctor before the new year. You get the page for, you get your food list, so you can start in January. Or you can start right now. There's no need to wait. You can eat. How many people do ham on Christmas or a prime rib or like a turkey? Perfect. You can have a very easy keto Christmas, keto Hanukkah, keto whatever.
The rumor has it you're seeing patients, talking to them, working with, in a clinic.
Yeah, so I work for a medical weight loss company now where I'm working with people, and it's all virtual, it's all over video. Normally they have a physical location where you see them in person, but and it's really interesting. I've talked about it in my videos because these people are brand new to low carb or keto. Most of the people that come to me privately that find me online are already doing keto and they're just not getting the results they want, so we just have to like troubleshoot. These people, it's a trip for them because I kind of have to reassure them, like, no, it's okay. You can have all the meat you want. Like all that stuff you think you're not supposed to eat, that's what you should eat the most of. And like all those fruits and whole grains, not so much. So it's interesting to have to start. I with my own private clients, I almost never had to start anybody from scratch, like teaching them about all this. So
it's different when you have someone who doesn't know anything about food or nutrition.
Yeah.
But I mean, I could also live on king crab legs. That's fantastic. Edward says he's having deviled eggs, king crab legs, and shrimp.
Yeah, that's a Christmas feast in my book. We have a question about blood. This is an easy one for you. Lob the softball over to you.
Well, no, that's yours.
Me?
Blood sugar, right?
Yeah.
Fasting blood sugars go up when you're fasting and when you're keto.
Not fasting, just fasting blood glucose.
Okay. So like the first one in the morning.
Yeah, from high 80s to 106. So from what I know from this gentleman here, 106, 116 is not high. Fasting blood glucose can be higher than you might expect on a ketogenic diet for any number of reasons. And most of the keto doctors I know, I'm not going to say they don't care about fasting glucose, but the fasting level is much less important than what your blood sugar is doing after meals, right? Because you have the dawn phenomenon, you have that morning surge of cortisol. Most people's glucose can be a little bit high in the morning. And it's if your A1C is good and your insulin is good, a fasting glucose of 116 to me is like meaningless.
Yeah.
But I'm not the MD, you are.
Yeah.
So
that's right. And the kind of deeper story is, I think, the regulatory levels, like the thermostat, if you will, blood sugar changes when you're not eating all those carbs, and you're going to have a little bit more up and down, but it doesn't mean the same thing. So that's yet again, the cholesterol doesn't mean the same thing. The blood sugar doesn't mean the same thing.
Yeah, blood sugars go down after eating. I think that's a lot more important than the fasting level.
Yeah.
All of these sort of normal ranges, whether we're talking about fasting glucose or fasting insulin or cholesterol, triglycerides, all these normal ranges might not be appropriate for people. All of those ranges are based on people eating a mixed, i.e. high carb diet. These ranges might not really be appropriate when your carb intake is like in the basement.
I tried to draw this out where you have this bloodstream that has 5 grams of carbs. That's all there is, but you're pouring 300 grams of carbs into this 5 grams, and then your blood sugar goes up, the insulin goes up. It's like this torrent of, almost like a stream with rapids. That's the word I was trying to get. So then when you cut the carbs down in the diet, you still have this 5 gram bloodstream, but the amount going in over the course of the day is 20, 50 maybe. Right. And so that's smoother up and down. But you might see a small increase to 110. And it's okay. It's not like it's like a ripple on the water rather than this turmoil, tumultuous rapids. Yeah. When you're eating all these carbs and the blood sugar goes up. And I don't know how to describe that yet coherently.
Well, I think there's 2 things. I mean, for me, like you were saying, it's blood sugar moves throughout the day. It's not going to be like a steady thing. It's little blips, little rises, as opposed to these wild, crazy highs and lows.
But like blood pressure.
Yeah.
Blood pressure goes up and down. That's normal.
Yeah. And then like you don't have the best way of explaining it, so let me try to explain to you. The thing that I've heard you say that's brilliant, but I think you have it figured out in your head, but the way you try to say it is not as clear. Sure. So that's why we were such a good team to team up. When you're on a ketogenic diet, or even just a very low carb diet, most of your body is running on fats and ketones. And there's a couple of select cells that actually do require glucose, right? They have to have glucose. Red blood cells are one of those special types of cells. Red blood cells do not have mitochondria. So they can't burn fats and ketones. Fats and ketones are burned for energy in the mitochondria. If a red blood cell doesn't even have mitochondria, it can't use fats or ketones. they have to use glucose. So when you're in a ketogenic state, where should glucose be? Should it be in the cells that need the glucose? Should it be in the bloodstream? Probably. Because your blood, those red blood cells need it more than your hepatocytes need it, and more than your whatever
and
other cells need it.
White blood cells need them.
For the immune burst, yeah, the blood sugar always goes up when you have an active infection, right?
You do, and I mean, blood sugar does go up, and that's a normal response.
See, that's the thing too. Like, and I just wrote this huge blog post about why blood sugar can sometimes be higher than you expect on a ketogenic diet, and it's like, I love that people are learning about this and they're like, well, why is my blood? I love that people want to know how this is working, but we have to have an appreciation for the fact that there are circumstances where it's normal for your blood sugar to be higher or lower. Like if you do an intense workout, your blood sugar is going to skyrocket because it's supposed to. Rob, Dr. Sybus talks about this all the time. It's normal, and so people have to have an appreciation for like it's okay for your glucose to be high in situations where your glucose is supposed to be high.
I have a confession. I never check my blood sugar.
You heard it here first.
I never check my ketones. Why? Why do I want to know?
Exactly.
Why do I want to worry about it?
Yeah.
But then I never had diabetes.
Would kill you. Yeah, exactly. You're not sick. You're not trying to reverse it.
All the time.
I don't know if he measures all the time, but he's the king of data.
Well, I measure his cholesterol all the time.
I think
Did I tell you the story when I met Dave Feldman for the first time?
Yeah.
So we're on one of those low carb cruises. Remember those boats you go on and
those
infections?
virus factories.
Yeah. So we're on the low carb cruise.
Viral transmission ships. Okay,
we're on the low carb cruise, and this guy comes up to me, says, "Doc, I got to show you. I'm measuring my cholesterol at home, and look at what happens." And I look at his reams of data, the papers printed out, and he's checking his cholesterol like 3 times a day. And he says, "Look at the cholesterol going up and down over the course of the day." I looked at him and I said, "Well, you know, we doctors don't really look at cholesterol more than just the fasting in the morning. And we don't look at it over the course of the day." And he said, "But look how the total on the LDL, they go way up and down over the." And it was the first time I'd ever seen that kind of variability in it, and we're not taught how much it can go up and down. And so I just honestly said, "You know, Dave, I don't know what you're doing. This is interesting, and you know, I don't. I keep doing it." So
we need to go back. You were making hand motions that nobody can see, like they can only see you from here up. I'm gonna move back. Right. So I'll tell the other people about the first time I met Dave. But we have more. We have like over 30 people here now. If anyone has a question, in case you just tuned in, this is Dr. Eric Westman, like the keto doctor. So if you have questions about blood sugar, keto, obesity, type 2 diabetes, he's the guy. So Dave Feldman, our friend from cholesterolcode.com, years ago at this point, 5 years ago or something, he was writing to me every now and then because he was starting a blog and he wanted somebody, literally he like wanted me to help proofread and edit. And I didn't really understand what he was doing. And every time he would write to me, they're like, "Oh, this guy again, like this, this coot." And I finally got to know him. We met, I don't remember where we met in person the first time, one of the conferences, but we were at, I don't know if it was the first Metabolic Health Summit, whatever it was. We managed to sit down with David Diamond, who's like a pretty good, he's a neuroscientist, but he does a lot of research in cholesterol and lipids. And I was so pleasantly surprised that he even gave Dave the time of day. Like, because, you know, Dave is like, look at this graph. He's got that inverse, like the more saturated fat he ate, the lower his cholesterol went. The more calories he ate, the lower his cholesterol was going. And it was like a perfect inverse pattern. And I give Dr. Diamond a lot of credit for like not being like, you're crazy, I gotta go, kid, see you later. Like he was like, okay, I'll sit down. And he was like fascinated by it. And so, but Dave, if you don't know what he's doing, he comes off like a total kook. And then once you understand, it's like, oh my God, what? I mean, he's really overturning a lot of what we knew, or at least
Well,
questioning a lot. Even within the low carb world, questioning what we thought we knew about it.
yeah, and one of the things he's doing, which is really great, is the grassroots research. So not only, I mean, we've helped some Facebook groups collect information and surveys and help them publish information, but he's actually raising money to do a study, formalize, and look at people who have high cholesterol on a keto diet. So rather than, so every mainstream organization that funds research would say, you know, your cholesterol's up on a keto diet, don't do that. They wouldn't say, oh, let's study it. They would just tell you how to do it.
And this is the big sticking point, even among doctors. They, oh well, you lost 50 pounds and your A1C is down and your glucose is down and your blood pressure is normal and your gout is gone and your acid reflux is gone, but your LDL went up. That's supposedly, I disagree, but supposedly this is like the last sticking point of the medical and nutrition community at large not accepting keto. And if we could get rid of this care, then it's going to be more mainstream. I think there's a lot more hurdles than that, but that's one of them. Now, to all the people who just joined, because we're almost at 40 people, I'll just remind everyone that we're here because it's been a weird year, it's a crazy year, and we figured that there might be some people that are alone on Christmas Eve who aren't normally alone, and you could be alone or you can hang out with us. So I think there's some questions. Let's see.
Targeting belly fat. Well,
low
carb diets target belly fat more than other types of diets, so that's just the right way to do it.
Yeah.
Keto diet's a good way to do it. And checking ketones. I don't really measure ketones, blood glucose, and I don't think we really know. Like, there are possibly some diseases or problems that you want to know the ketone level and keep it at a certain range. Like seizures, for example. Children with seizures, you want to make sure they have a ketone level. And maybe cancer, Alzheimer's, maybe mood problems, but the science really isn't there. So we're at that trial and error sort of thing. So if, for example, you're checking your ketone level and it's 1 and you feel great, and then it's 2 and you don't feel so great, I mean, you're really, trial and error means you're finding out for yourself how you react to a certain ketone level. We don't have other people, like averages of lots and lots of people in studies to go by, so you have to go by your own results.
Yeah, I mean, so I read it quick and I didn't see Sarah, you're asking specifically about mood disorders. I think it's probably an individual thing. I think, like he was saying, some people will, feel great at 0.4. Some people might need to be 2 and above. It's really going to be different. And it might even, it could be even something besides the ketone level. I mean, it could, like, so many things affect mood on any given day, the amount of sleep you get. So even having the same ketone level on one day, maybe you don't feel as good at the same level a week later. I think you just have to experiment a lot. Now, as for the belly fat, it's rough. It's rough. I think keto helps, but I do think, we just talked to Jackie Everstein the other day, who was like Dr. Atkins, his clinical partner for like 30 years. And she was really emphasizing that belly fat, not only is it really difficult to lose, especially for older women, that also has a lot to do with like stress and cortisol and lack of sleep. So if your diet is really, really good, try to, mess with those other things and see if it can help. But that is very stubborn, unfortunately. Is it harder to lose weight after losing 110 pounds on keto? Well, if you've already lost 110 pounds, congratulations, holy moly. So the closer you get to your quote-unquote goal weight, the harder it is. I mean, the larger, the heavier you are when you start, the faster the weight comes off, and it does slow down, right?
Sure. Part of it is water loss that happens at first. You'll have more weight loss with more water, and you have to lose that water eventually. But then when you think about it, you're smaller, so you actually need less eat. So, but that's okay. I mean, the perfect diet is the one where you're always, going down, and how fast it happens depends on how much you eat. And
Well, and
that's the reality.
It is unfortunate that, like, if you've lost 100 pounds, you don't need as much food to maintain your new smaller shape. But there's that saying, what got you here won't get you there, right? The diet, whatever approach you use to lose that first 110 pounds, to get the next 10 or 20 or 80 off, you might have to do something a little different.
Yeah, in the obesity medicine world, we talk about the disease changing over time.
Right.
So the biology, the physiology changes, so your approach will change over time.
So Nancy's asking who's playing the piano. Is the piano? It's just it's the stereo. If it's too loud and distracting, we can turn it down, or you can just play a song. He's a very good piano player. He could play us a little too. I don't think we missed any other questions yet.
So we just went through the first Adapt Your Life Keto Made Simple Masterclass. Adapt Your Life is a company I helped found. We started making clean and keto-friendly bars, and because they're made in South Africa and shipped to the U.S., it's a big, slow, progress to get it going. But so we started making these educational classes, and actually talked you into making a class. But so Adapt Your Life Academy is the new platform for the digital classes for Adapt Your Life, and we launched our first one in December, and it went really, really well. So we had hundreds of people signing up. We helped them. Most of them, they were new to keto, and we got people started. We had a Facebook group for 3 weeks, so that if people had questions as they started, they could ask us. And so we're going to do it again in January. And hopefully we'll do it once a month or so, or every couple months to get people started.
Yeah, we had like just shy of 700 people. A little less than 700 people did it, and the feedback was beyond our wildest hopes. Everybody was really happy, really satisfied. I mean, it's only a 3-week course, and then they have the option to have some ongoing support. But during those 3 weeks, people have started losing several pounds after being stuck for a long time, with just relatively small changes to what they were doing. But we also, end your carb confusion. I'm all about keto without the crazy. We are both about simplifying and getting rid of all the noise and the stuff that doesn't matter. And it's okay if you want to use Splenda, like artificial sweeteners are not going to kill you. We're not about the fear mongering. And for me, it was really nice to see people losing weight, and people were already starting to come off medications and stuff. But what I found most rewarding was people saying, I feel so free because I don't have to track anymore, and I don't have to, everybody's so worried about the macros and the numbers and the weighing and measuring the food. And we provide a food list and some very basic instructions on what to do. And with that information, if you follow it to the letter, you don't have to weigh and measure your food. You don't have to track, because it'll work. You can, if you want to have the numbers. Some people enjoy that. You can, but you don't have to. And that to me, those were the nicest comments, where people literally said, I feel like I can breathe again. Food should be fun. Food is yummy. You shouldn't. The day I have to pull out a spreadsheet at the dinner table, just take me out and shoot me. No, not quite, but it's like Mark Sisson said something like that. He said, the day I have to consult an app to tell me whether I love my life, just shoot me. Yeah. Do we have any other?
Yeah, it looks like Karen took the Keto Made Simple Masterclass, already using the acronym KMSMT. That's great. So
hi, Kathy Owens. Thanks for your nice comment.
Yeah. So it turns out the woman's world, which it's interesting, men's health and women's world these kind of, journal periodicals have a fascination about keto.
Yeah, but
and low carb.
Men's Health magazine actually has some pretty good articles on low carb keto.
I wouldn't say they're the same.
Whereas like women's health, unfortunately, the women's counterpart to that magazine is trash. It's garbage. It's all about the tofu and the quinoa and the kale, and it's fine. If you want to have tofu and kale, have at it. But Men's Health will tell you eat a steak. So why don't you talk about the Women's World thing?
Well, it turns out I was on the cover of Women's World in 2014. I tracked back and found it, and they called it the Duke Last Chance Diet or something. And, yeah. So, no, that they're interested in. They're writing an article on it, and so we connected with people who we met throughout the country through the ADAPT events. We went around and connected people who were ADAPT experts, medical experts, and then also people who were interested or following a keto diet called ADAPT events. And so we got anecdotes and testimonials, and they were interviewed, and they came to my office, hired a photographer to do the glamour shot thing, like this and the code and all that.
You'll see it on magazine stands in London, mid-January or something.
Yeah, it's slated for the third week in January. Yeah.
And yes, we are talking about the trash tabloid Woman's World that you see at the grocery checkout.
Well,
however,
I thought it was a peer-reviewed journal.
So, possibly a questionable publication, but this thing has like a million subscribers. Like
1.6.
The circulation number is ridiculous. So for this to reach somebody, some woman out there that's 300 pounds or that's 150, but she's got metabolic syndrome or something, like we don't know who will reach. And I mean, questionable publication, but pretty good pedigree. Dr. David Ludwig has been on the cover of this thing, so people take it, if it's good enough for Ludwig, it's good enough for us. And I think Ken Berry was on the cover recently too. Now we do have a question or two. Jackie finds it hard to fast or skip meals. My answer is you don't have to fast or skip meals. You can, but fasting is not required on keto. If you eat the right things in amounts that are suitable, you don't let anyone convince you that you have to fast.
Some people eat 5 times a day, but just not very much.
Yeah, they graze. They have little bits. Like I know we've been told that's like the worst thing, and you just have 1 or 2 meals. It's okay to graze if that works best for you.
Well, I know there's a common teaching, the nouveau keto fasting so that you get autophagy started. Right? If you don't fast, you won't be in autophagy. So is that like fingers on the chalkboard?
Yeah.
So I am still not sure the added benefit of doing that to get that effect. Yeah. Although it's all the hype at the moment.
Yeah. But I wonder too, what was the name, Jackie? Yeah. With the fasting, like hard to fast or skip meal, I wonder if you're on medication, that can make it harder too. Medication might make you hungrier, or especially if she's on like diabetes meds, some of those really can. So if that's an issue, that might be somewhere to look. What else do we have here? 65, used almond, roast pork, and veg, 40 pounds to lose. Stalled for 8 weeks now. Well, Pete, I have a book called The Stall Slayer about breaking fat loss stalls. So it's at stallslayer.com. You can either check that out, or sometimes, even though 8 weeks, sometimes you just have to keep going, and it'll pick up again. The human body does weird things, and or you could mess around with things. But I think sometimes, and as long as you're keeping the carbs low and doing the right things, I always tell people good things are happening on the inside, even if your weight is stalled. I was a couple of years ago, before I was on thyroid medicine, I had gained a lot of weight because the thyroid was all wonky, but I was still eating very low carb. All my other blood work looked great. The glucose, the insulin, the A1C, everything was great. I was just heavier. So your weight and your body size is not necessarily indicative of what's going on inside. Inside, you're probably doing just as well as ever, and it's just that the weight is a little stubborn.
So the two most commonly cited things that people learned from our Keto Made Simple masterclass, or if they took or read the Salt Slayer, similar kind of thing, although your book is in more detail. Two things that people changed that made the biggest difference was the total versus net carbs. So use total carbs, not net, more precise, more accurate. And the other thing is to not have excessive fat. There's a limit to the oils, the butter, the nuts, the cream, the mayonnaise. And so I'm going through all of the surveys. Hope if you filled one in, I'm tallying them and I'm reading them all and summarizing them. But that was the strongest signal, is that people overconsume the fat. Well, because there are no carbs, right? You can have as much as unlimited amount.
Well,
no, you can't. But
not and still lose weight.
Right.
But you can be weight stable, or even if you're not losing weight, if you're overdoing quote the fat, you might not lose weight, but metabolically you still will be pretty okay. I think. But yeah, that was I think if you start off really heavy, you can get away with a much higher fat intake and still lose weight as long as the carbs are low. But I think over time, as you get closer, then the higher fat, the really fat dense things like the nuts and the cheese kind of.
Well, the cream that you add to the coffee 5 times a day. Yeah, I mean, you just don't go crazy on that.
There's Les Bain. Hi, Les. Merry Christmas. He's on my Patreon.
Nice.
Who else do we see here? Do we have any? No new questions. Yeah, this is an opportunity for you to ask some questions if you want to. Otherwise, what else can we talk about? We happen to have, I don't know, just because this is handy here, you have it here. I did a review of this book, I think, on my blog. It's called The Saccharine Disease, not saccharin like sweet and low. Like saccharine was the old-timey British word for sweet, saccharine. And so this is by a doctor named T.L. Cleve. And it's from, this is from the 60s or something? Let me see. It's 1974, but I don't know if that was the first one. Published in 75. Anyway, this book, it's amazing to me how, and John Yudkin has a book called Pure, White, and Deadly. And both of those came out, I'm not sure, Yudkin's might have been after this one. But these books are, 40 to 50 years old, if not more. And they were talking about things that we're all only talking about now. They were talking about sugar and gout and hypertension and diabetes and obesity, and even talking about that these problems were not exclusive to overweight people, which is like a point I'm harp on all the time, because it's not, you can have all of these metabolic problems even at a normal weight. And it's just amazing to me that this isn't new. And this is something that Gary Taubes writes about all the time, that none of this is new. This was uncontroversial. Cutting sugar and starch was not controversial 200 years ago. Like, it was known that's what you do. And all of a sudden in the 50s, it was like, it's saturated fat. Like,
I had a great victory in clinic recently. Taught this fellow who, he kind of understood what insulin did. He had been put on insulin 10 years ago, gained 150 pounds, and wasn't really happy with the doctor that he had. And turns out another doctor referred him to me, so different doctor. And within 2 days now, he's almost off all of his insulin, which is 180 units of insulin. And in fact, it gets to the point where he was put on a continuous glucose monitor so he could check his blood sugar with his phone on insulin and eating carbs. But they were always, 150, to 200, something like that. And now, just within a day, the blood sugars are between 100 and 150. And you know, it's funny because he doesn't quite understand what's going on in terms of the food and the carbs and all that. I just gave him the list of foods, and it's pretty simple. I don't know, maybe less than high school education, but he sees that blood sugar number and he's amazed that by eating burgers and eggs and sausage, that his blood sugar now is almost too low on insulin. So I'm helping him day by day reduce his insulin level. It's cool.
It's amazing, but this is why we're so adamant in our book and in the Keto Masterclass that if you are on insulin, you have to have a doctor or a medical professional assisting you, because the minute you stop eating foods that raise your blood sugar is going to start coming down. And if you take the same dose, like, okay, now you're eating this much carbohydrate. If you take the same dose of insulin you were using when you were eating this much carbohydrate, you're going to have a problem. And people, I think most people know that, but every now and then there's a person that falls through the cracks, and you hear like some kind of story of, I got so woozy or I passed out, and not good. Don't do that.
So already he was worried about what he's going to tell the other doctor, because the other doctor said you can't have two doctors for diabetes. You just have me. Of course, this is the one who said eat carbs, take insulin, and now he's already wondering what to tell this other doctor. I said, don't worry. I actually know the other doctor, and I said he's going to be happy that your blood sugars are better. However you did it, But so from the patient's perspective, though, getting the drug, getting the insulin, and then going back to the doctor who prescribed the insulin, not on it, is you're thinking that you're not doing what the doctor told you to do, when actually you didn't need the insulin in the first place.
Yeah.
So I can see how it's very confusing when you have different styles of practice, and I don't like get people on medicine. Once you get people on insulin, you're really kind of sentencing people to diabetes forever.
Yeah, if they don't know. I have a question about that, though, but let me see if we missed anything here. So, Edward, I think we answer your question in our book. When I reach my goal, if you creep up total carb, yeah. But creep is the right word. You don't want to like wake up one morning and have a bagel. You want to very gradually increase it, week by week, adding a little bit, and we kind of talk about that in our book. But that's the way to do it. So I don't know if I guess it is a question for you. Like, the reason they give insulin for type 2s, the blood sugar's high, we got to bring the blood sugar down, therefore give you insulin. Because, that comes from the type 1 world, right? Even though the blood sugar is high for a completely different reason in type 1 and type 2. In a type 2 diabetic, I don't really believe in this beta cell burnout. But the heart doesn't burn out. The lungs don't burn out. Nobody says to a marathon runner, stop running because your lungs are going to burn out if you use them too much. Or don't we don't get random burnout of organs and glands. So I don't know that I believe in beta cell burnout. But
I think it can happen, but it's rare.
It's rare.
Really
it's rare.
Yeah.
But my main question, don't you love how I get to interrupt like the world famous doctor, because it's my channel? So the people that are tuning in on Christmas, they get the good stuff. This doesn't happen every day.
Indeed.
So no, my real question is, if somebody with type 2 diabetes who is about to be put on insulin, does any doctor ever actually run a C-peptide or actually measure their insulin to see, your insulin is already quadruple normal, I'm not going to give you more insulin? They never do. They just give. That's crazy.
It is. Yeah, so most people don't know that with type 2 diabetes, your insulin level is already high. And so adding more, so there's insulin resistance, is the term that's used. And what it really means is that you're carbohydrate intolerant and insulin resistant, and treating the underlying food and the extra weight is the answer that I choose that people do. Although, the most commonly used treatment is insulin or pills, and then this person gained 150 pounds over 10 years on insulin, and with the best medical care and the best city that we call ourselves, the city of medicine, Durham, North Carolina.
Self-proclaimed.
Yes. But irony and sarcasm here.
But with you said it's rare for the burnout. I have heard people that I respect say that in certain circumstances they give insulin, maybe a low dose, to sort of take the burden off the pancreas, to kind of like,
well,
I don't know.
That's a whole nother rabbit hole that is just another excuse to give people insulin. Well, because you're tending toward diabetes, and why don't we give you insulin to protect your beta cells? No, if you cut the carbs and lost the weight, you wouldn't need any of that. So these are all just other ways to use medications that you don't need.
You heard it here. So we have a question. Somebody has a question about metformin. You don't use metformin much, but maybe you can answer.
I don't ever prescribe metformin.
If I'm able to go off metformin, will it help me lose weight faster? I don't think so, but I don't know. I would think metformin would help you lose weight, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't use metformin, although I'll let people stay on it. Some doctors combine keto with metformin, and they say there's better weight loss, faster weight loss, but there really haven't been any studies, especially large-scale studies. Like, I'd like to see 100 people on metformin and keto, make sure there aren't any side effects that happen. That while you might get better or faster weight loss, that it might be at the expense of some sort of side effect. So I try to stay away from the drugs.
So we have some other.
Of course, Merry Keto Christmas.
So, not keto related, how eating only fruit affects fruitarians. Will they develop non-alcoholic fatty liver at some point? So maybe not. And I know that's like heresy, but if you are literally eating nothing but fruit, so this is where you're going to have other problems besides fatty liver if you're literally eating nothing but fruit. I mean, let's say that right off the bat. Like, long term, you're going to have problems. In a week, you won't die. Long term, probably not a good idea to eat nothing but fruit. It probably is going to be a little hard on your liver. Will you develop fatty liver? Maybe not, only because depending on how much fruit you're eating, the total load of the fructose is maybe not that much.
So there's always that energy, the energy amount you're taking in for the day. There was a program at Duke called the Duke Rice Diet, which was literally rice, fruit, and fish. And most of the diet was rice, very similar to the Ornish or Pritikin kind of approach. And the way it worked, even though there was a lot of rice, it was high carb, but the percentage is that the calories were really low. There were 600 to 800 calories per day for a while until you lost weight. So you always want to see what the caloric or energy intake is when you're talking about a nutrition approach. But the nice thing about keto is you get a reduction in caloric intake. Just about everyone gets a reduction in caloric intake automatically without really counting anything or feeling deprived.
So could they develop non-alcoholic fatty liver? Yeah, but honestly, the total calorie intake from nothing but fruit, you probably wouldn't. I mean, you could. I'm sure you could if you ate enough grapes and apples. Yeah, but I don't know. So this is a very subjective, individual thing, I think. But Lynn is asking, how long does it take to become insulin sensitive? She's been on keto 9 months.
Yeah, it depends where you are on the insulin sensitivity weight curve. I mean, so the weight is not perfect, but it's a good indication. So that if you're not at your goal weight yet, you may still be insulin resistant. I'm finding that the beginning of insulin resistance can happen when you're not that overweight, even.
Well,
So it may be that you're going to be insulin resistant until you get near that goal.
yeah. And this is where I give a talk on a concept called the personal fat threshold. I have a blog post about it. You can go to my website and just search, Amy Berger personal fat threshold. You'll see something come up, because it's not necessarily about the total body weight. It's about where that fat is stored. So if you are still carrying some of that fat in and around the pancreas and the liver, your insulin sensitivity is going to be a little weird, even if you lost, fat from other parts of your body. So, and that's also why all of these same problems, the metabolic syndrome, the diabetes, the fatty liver, can happen in people at a normal weight, because if they're not obese, but they happen to have a lot of fat building up on the inside, then I think that's why we have those things. I mean, this is why we have such big type 2 diabetes and metabolic syndrome epidemics in China and India, right? These people become metabolically weird at a much lower body weight. Anyway, this is a question I like. Can ketones be too high? I'm usually around 0.4, but went up to 1.6 one night while fasting. Any danger with this? So 1.6 is not that high, first of all. That's really not that high. Can ketones be too high? Yes. 1.6 is not close to being too high. Too high is like a relative term. Most people will not see anything above like 4 or 5 unless they're doing an extended fast, which we do not recommend. We don't condone that kind of thing. That's the right condone. I always
recommend condone.
It's condone good or bad. What's the bad one? Sanction. I never know what's what. Anyway, I'm not a writer or anything. So there is such a thing as too high, and that is like the keto acidosis. 10, 15, 20. You are never going to get there on a ketogenic diet if you don't have diabetes. So don't worry about that. Although I've heard from some people, and I don't know if they were fasting or not, if they get to like 4 or 5, they start to not feel so good, which is fine. There's no reason to be at that ketone level anyway, but they start to feel weird, like not in a good way. So I don't know if that was necessarily acidosis, but somebody's sweet spot might be 1 or 2 or 1.5.
Well, and some people have all of the benefits of weight loss and feeling better and all with a ketone level of 0.1.
So I feel like I'm talking more, but it's my turn, right? He's the special guest. So I've heard. Look at that. Look at that. Did you see that look at his face? No, I'll hear people say something like, I'm doing X, Y, and Z, and I'm not in ketosis, and I'll write back like, oh, okay, well, how are you measuring? Are you measuring urine? Are you measuring blood? And they'll say, well, it's blood, but it's only 0.3 or 0.4. And I'm like, okay, lesson time. Anything measurable is ketosis. Like I know Bullock and Fitty, who like are your kind of heroes, and you look up to them, even though you're kind of on the same level with them, but you have a great deal of respect for both of them. They have sort of posited that nutritional ketosis is a blood beta hydroxybutyrate of like 0.5 to 5.0, but even they have kind of recalibrated because they're doing all that Verta research, and so many of their patients have reverse diabetes and have really good success without being even at 0.5. And the fact is, most people's ketone level is 0.0. So if you're even at 0.2, you're already like double what most people are at, So the ketone level is not. I almost wish ketone meters had ever been invented. I almost wish all there was urine strips, and those were bad enough too.
Well, but it's made it more popular. A lot of people like measuring things.
Yeah, and I do think, like you were saying, for certain disease states, it might be more important, but.
And they're helpful for troubleshooting.
Yeah.
I'll ask some people to do, so I don't recommend people measure ketones in any way at first. But if there's a problem, an issue, they're not sure if it's not working to accomplish the goal, I might ask them to measure.
Yeah, I do that too. If somebody is not getting where they
And
want to
urine
go
is
with, well,
fine.
are you even in ketosis?
Checking urine is useful.
Yeah.
I thought.
So Patricia has a good question. Can you explain why blood sugar can raise 40 points during a clean fast on day 2 or 3? Yeah, so I would hope that, again, we don't endorse extended fasting, but if you are doing extended fasting, I would hope that you're following Jason Fung, who really has explained this sort of thing over and over again. This is just your body being a perfectly functioning human body. Your blood glucose, so this is a great lesson, like blood glucose responds to a lot of things other than the food we eat. I mentioned earlier that if you do an intense workout, your blood sugar is going to rise a lot. Dr. Sivas is on podcast. He says his blood sugar can double. It can go from like 60 or 70 something to the 140s during a workout. No food, just a workout. Stress can do it. So if you're just different situations can make your blood sugar do that. But the cool thing is, if you're not eating, then you know your blood sugar didn't rise from the blueberry muffin because you didn't eat. It's rising because your own body is producing it. And if your own body is producing it, it's probably producing it for a reason. So I honestly wouldn't worry about that during a fast.
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Breath ketones. I think measuring, I think measuring ketones is good. Like I like it for the troubleshooting. If somebody's not getting the results they want, okay, well, the first step is, are you actually in ketosis? And then, like Lori was saying, it's good to have a sense of like in or out, yes or no, without caring necessarily what the level is, right? Like if I pee on a strip and it turns a little pink, okay, great, I'm good to go. I'm not beating myself up that it's not dark purple. You know what I mean? So I think if that's just a way to keep yourself on track, I think that's fine. Hello from Floresville, Texas. Hello. Yeah, we're in North Carolina here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm originally from New York. We're originally from Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I've lived in a lot of places though with the military and stuff. And you have too though. You did what, residency in Kentucky or something? Or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 4 years in Lexington.
We have a fancy name, science unbiased. This might be like a scary question. Blood beta hydroxylate increase when you convert fat into ATP. Yeah. Why do low fat doctors pretend like this isn't true? I don't know. I don't know why they do that. I mean, why do they claim ketones are dangerous? That's what we were just saying before. A lot of doctors and maybe nutritionists, the only time they ever learn about keto is the ketogenic diet for epilepsy or scary, dangerous diabetic ketoacidosis. That's the only ketogenic thing they've ever learned about. So if that's all they know, if they hear that you're in ketosis, it scares them because they don't know that there's this awesome, beneficial, healthy state of being in nutritional ketosis. That's my understanding.
I would say most doctors don't even know about the ketogenic diet for epilepsy. Pediatricians have learned, but not internists, family doctors. I doubt it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, most doctors still aren't trained about nutrition.
Well, maybe
a lot of opportunity.
We're coming up almost on an hour. We'll end soon, but maybe with that in mind.
Must be that. Yeah, we're waiting for Santa. I was told that he has clearance to break the stay-at-home order, and he's wearing a mask.
Yeah, as long as he wears a mask. Maybe just talk briefly about some of the new frontiers of keto research. Like, I think it's pretty well known at this point that it's good for weight loss, it's good for diabetes, even PCOS is catching on, but there's a lot of rare diseases that you're finding.
Well, the other important one to know about is type 1 diabetes. And these are all like Facebook groups that get together and then change academic research. It's great. So type 1s have fewer hypos. They still need insulin, but they don't need as much insulin. But then, no, it's fascinating. There are some diseases that are relatively uncommon, but people start doing keto and they find they're feeling better. for example, this glycogen storage disease, where the glycogen is a storage form of sugar, and that there are many different kinds depending on whether the enzyme is messed up. One of them, called McArdle disease, people can't store sugar in the muscle. So the classical thinking was, let's feed people sugar all day long. Let's wake up the children at night, give them sugar because their muscle needs sugar, right? Well, the people themselves started doing keto. They didn't really understand what was going on behind the scenes. But what happens is you stop burning sugar as your primary fuel. You burn fat and ketones as your fuel. And so these people were going from, stopping every 20 yards to tie their shoe or pretend to tie their shoe, now climbing mountains. And so the glycogen storage disease, turns out the muscles can run on fat.
Shocking.
Well, it's been known forever. In fact, heart muscle prefers fat over sugar. Yeah. So it's like these blinders of sugar and carbs being the most prominent, and we've taught that for so long. But that's kind of a very cool keto fixing a rare disease, shifting the paradigm of looking at metabolism. And world researchers were clueless. I mean, it was the people changing their own diet, getting into a Facebook group, doing a survey that bubbled up, and then we wrote a paper on it.
Do you remember did the first person try it because of the McArdle, or were they doing keto for like weight loss or something, and they realized, oh my gosh, my glycogen storage disease is better?
They usually do it for weight loss. Yeah. And then notice the side benefit.
I read when I first learned about keto for migraine, I came across a paper where twin sisters did the Atkins diet because they were both obese. They wanted to lose weight. And as a happy little surprise side effect, their chronic migraines went away. So then they started doing more research into it, but they didn't start keto for migraines. That was just a little surprise. But I'm reading about more and more very rare, very debilitating, inborn genetic neurological disorders, and keto is helping. Now it's never going to fix it. It's a genetic. It's never going to go away. But there are kids who are like functioning now, who are verbal, who are whatever, interacting, that weren't before. And it's like, I think probably a lot of the research. I mean, keto. Maybe one day I'll do like a video about the real crazy brain mechanisms and the central nervous system mechanisms. Keto does so many fascinating things at the molecular level that it doesn't really surprise me when you hear about the different things that get better and how and why they get better. But as I think about it now, probably the reason so much of this research has been held up, that it didn't even start happening until recently, is that these things were believed to be untreatable because we didn't know any treatment. Like if you're on a high carb diet and the kid is constantly sick and nobody ever gets any better, well, because they're just eating a normal diet, you wouldn't expect, like type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes doesn't get better if you eat a normal diet. So like, it's just interesting like we said at the very, very beginning of this video, when we were talking about cholesterol and the blood glucose and everything we know about certain diseases and certain treatments is based on research done in people eating sort of normal high carb diets. That's there's like a huge gaping hole in medical research.
You keep saying normal high carb diet.
Well,
can you rephrase that?
Abnormal, evolutionarily aberrant high carb diet. The most commonly consumed Western disaster of a diet. Let's make sure there's no more.
Well, remember, you burn what you eat. If you're a carb eater, you're going to be a carb burner.
So Pete says, two questions. Pete says the doctor is clueless about keto. There's a bunch of websites that you can search now for keto-friendly doctors. If you go to your website, has some of the lists, and dietdoctor.com has doctor listings. Low Carb USA has doctor listings. If you're they're international listings too. So
drwestmanonline.com.
drwestmanonline.com.
drwestmanonline.
And then somebody
I even did a video for doctors.
Okay.
Some useful information. you on there, and then there's a video especially for Dr. That came from the Keto retreat because so many people said, "Can you do a video for my doctor to watch?"
Right. Yes, I mean, there's more and more keto-friendly doctors, and some of them, if you don't find anyone in your area, you might be able to find one that can do a televisit. So you can maybe answer this one, although I have an answer. If I'm hospitalized, how can I make sure I don't get administered a glucose drip and force-fed carbs?
Well, don't worry about the glucose drip. It's not much glucose, so that's kind of like looking at carblets, fine tuning. Don't worry about the glucose in the IV. But the food, I had this recently. One of my patients emailed me. She was in the hospital. What you do is you say you're intolerant or allergic to bread, pasta, rice, and fruit. And what happens is the dietitian calls you up. And in this case, my patient said that, and the dietitian calls, and so she said, I'm doing a keto diet with egg, and the dietitian said, "Oh, that's great. The keto diet's great. Here, I'll send you it." So once you get through the barrier of categorization of what diet you're on, you can talk to the dietitian directly. It's pretty simple. But you have to sort of be an outlier in terms of the category of food choices, and then you'll get a dietitian to contact you.
Yeah, so I mean, hopefully you get that lucky, or I don't know with the COVID situation. Normally, sometimes, depending on your level of care, family members can bring you food. So, but it just depends if you're in a place where they're allowed to visit you or not. But I've had a lot of people that will just have people bring them food from the outside. There was another. How many carbs should we be eating daily? Heather, that totally depends on what you're trying to. Are you 100 pounds overweight? Are you diabetic? Like, how many carbs should you eat a day?
Read to tell you how to.
The light here is okay. That's better. The light is like making it so that people can't see. We just wrote this book together. So yeah, how many carbs? It's an individual, not 300 grams, but you might be able to have more than somebody else. Yeah, Lori. So Lori, this is something that we both talk about all the time. People think you have to have so much willpower to avoid the sweets, and you don't need. We literally say this word for word in the book. You don't need willpower to resist a craving when the craving isn't there. When you genuinely don't even want the cookies, it's not a hard. You just don't even want them. It doesn't happen for everybody all the time. Like, I'm not going to say I never have sweet. I mean, I do, but yeah, it's amazing how your palate changes and the cravings, for the most part, go away. Every now and then they might get you, but for the most part.
No, but you don't have to say that to the people who think you have unbelievable willpower. Just say, yeah, I do.
Don't you wish you were me? All right, so yeah, we're about an hour. I think we'll, and I could keep going a few more minutes, but I don't know. No one seems to have a whole lot more questions. But
looks like Ethan has medical. You could ask for lactated ringers or normal saline. Those are the IV solutions that have no sugar in them. So you could do that too. But I don't worry about the D5. It's not much sugar. Of course, it depends how fast the rate of administration is. But.
And I noticed something that I really only learned recently, and some of this was from the talk that Dr. Eads gave at Low Carb Denver last year, well, 2 years ago now. It's not 2019. So Dr. Mike Eads wrote a book called Protein Power with his wife, Dr. Mary Danny, both physicians, and it's from like the mid-90s, like 94, 96, but to this day, it's an excellent book. I mean, really stands the test of time. And anyway, Dr. Eads gave a talk about the different effects of when you eat food, what it does to the hormones and even like the physical distension of the stomach, how that signals to the brain and all the stuff in the intestine. That is different when glucose gets injected into your bloodstream and completely bypasses the whole digestive mechanism. So to actually get a glucose IV drip may really not be as detrimental as eating a ton of glucose and having it pass through, certain parts. So I find that fascinating. because like they do all these studies with, I guess they're putting glucose in one arm and insulin in another arm, where they're trying to like calibrate how much glucose can we give you and how much to test insulin, right?
Yeah.
But they're giving it in your bloodstream. They're not delivering it the way most of us get glucose, which is through the mouth, through the digestion. So it's like all of that research, how reliable
that
is
that whole insulin clamp paradigm is not, I would say, not commonly. I mean, it's a paradigm view that has limitations, and yet it was thought of as the gold standard for so long.
I think that's Dr. Westman is famous for his understating, measured, but that's why people like him. You
can fix your diabetes.
We need the Ken Berries of the world, and we need the Trocalagians, and we need the people that are going to shake things up, and then we need the Eric Westmans and the David Ludwigs and the Kevin Halls and whoever's. And what's the other guy's name? Is he the Stanford guy, Kevin Hall?
No.
Gardner.
Christopher Gardner.
Yeah.
Stanford. Yeah.
So it's all good. And then we need keto without the crazy. You can't have life without that. All right. I guess we will end, but thank you for being here. I hope we help you pass a little bit of your Christmas Eve slightly less lonely, and buy our book right now if you have nothing to do, or if you already own it, read it.
Christmas now. Yeah.
Oh, now it is. Oh my gosh. Well, Merry Christmas, everybody on the West Coast. I know my friend Les is on the West Coast, so it's only like 9 o'clock by him. But yeah. No. Check out adaptyourlifeacademy.com. Adaptyourlifeacademy.com is where you can find information on the Keto Made Simple Masterclass. Sign up for the mailing list so that you get notified when the course opens again, because it's going to be offered multiple times, but not all the time. So you have to get in while it's available.
And those tips that you get on the mailing emails are particularly great because you wrote them.
We send out little. Well, I don't write all of them, so I don't want to get credit for ones that might be great. Yeah, I do send out some. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Merry Christmas or Happy belated Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Boxing Day. Happy Thursday evening. If you celebrate nothing, that's cool too. And keep calm and keto on, as they say. All right. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Amy.